Hello, welcome. All right, so we are going to do that which I feel is not quite clear from the assignments for test two. All right, and then I'll let you ask any questions that you may have. Because to be honest, I just chose one, two, three, four, five, five to go over that may not have been clear in the assignments. But like I said, if you have additional questions, I will address them. Okay. So give me just a moment to get the names down. As always, all right. It's a good dilemma to have, having such good attendance. All right. And so remember, some of the questions are asking, ironically, for the wrong answer. So read them carefully. Remember, this one, you do not get multiple takes as you did receive with test one with unlimited takes, right? So I just figured that, I don't know, as far as being a collegiate class, I feel like you guys are doing so well on the assignments themselves. And thank you for your patience on those with the grading, as I've begun a second class, and it's just been a little crazy recently. And but at any rate, you guys are doing so well with your assignments. You aced your first test. And so I just figured test two and three ought to have a little bit degree of difficulty involved. And of course, I don't want to stump you, or I wouldn't be here to help you. I still want you to do well on test two. But like I said, I just feel like I shouldn't just give you the answers as I did on test one. All right. And so I'm going to, let's see here. All right. So let's take a look at test two. All right. Go back up. Okay, that which I didn't think was necessarily crystal clear. Number five, the Great Awakening's lack of deference and obedience toward authoritative figures who had swayed from God's purpose and had misruled is sometimes credited to the spirit of 76 during the War for Independence. That is true. That comes straight from Bernard Bailyn's book that I tried to summarize on, I believe, number 2 of the War for Independence handout. His court history, that it was ideals, these lofty ideals that motivated the founding fathers, right? Remember, there's that one. There's a salutary neglect thesis, which I liken to the British view, that we were left alone, but it had a healthy or salutary effect on us. And we acquired liberties, opportunities, powers that were never really intended by Britain to be granted to us. And so then at the end of the war of the French and Indian War, or the 7 Years' War, the British clamped down on us, primarily the Tory party in Parliament, wanted to put us in our place and began taxing us, etc. So that's the salutary neglect thesis. Bernard Bailyn's thesis is the romantic one, that of American exceptionalism, that our nation was born on lofty ideals. And the ideals, the other ones were made pretty clear, I thought, in number 2, the French Enlightenment, Scottish Whig opposition, right? But I'm not sure how much I did on the Great Awakening. So I wanted to make sure that I covered that one. Now I'm going to skip down to number 12. During and just after the War for Independence, state-level governments established conservative institutions and practices for fear of revolutionary zeal. No, number 12 is false. I tried to convey that, but I'm not sure how clearly I did so on number 1 of the Confederation assignment, turning toward a republic assignment. And yeah, supposedly it was just the opposite, that amidst the war from 1775 to 1783 against the British for our independence, that we were at our utmost level of enlightenment at that time. So state constitutions, not all, but some became much more revolutionary in that they became more representative or democratic. 5 or 6 of the states issued laws of emancipation of slaves in the North. And so, yeah, that numbers 12 is not true. They were very at their height of enlightened and democratic experimentation during the War for Independence. All right. So I wasn't sure if that was clear. Then I'm going to go down to number 18. Governor Morris, John Adams, Alexander Hamilton, and other conservatives. Look at A. Believe that while all American citizens ought to be equally entitled to the same basic rights, protections, and privileges, etc., not all would be equally capable as elected politicians. And that's the one you want to choose is A for number 18. In case I didn't make that clear in the handout, and in case I didn't go back to the lecture, I should have mentioned it. I usually do in my lectures on the topic, but just in case, I wanted to cover number 18. They were very elitist. In the Federalist Papers, right, which were philosophical, historical apology, if you will, defense of having a less democratic, more centralized government by way of the Constitution, right, as opposed to the Confederation that was more democratic and decentralized. In defending that, they mentioned, and I don't remember if it was Madison or Hamilton, mentioned that those citizens ought to elect their betters, the better sort, who are more capable than they are of making wise and sound decisions as their politicians, their elected politicians. And in fact, they should even serve as filters, they said, to filter out the foolish ideas of their electorate and only implement the wise ones. So they had that type of snobbery, if you will, the conservatives, the Federalists, during the Federalist era. John Adams, Alexander Hamilton had some very kind of undemocratic, snobbish quotes that people kind of label them with to this day. All right. So we have number 18, and now I'm going to go down to number 28. According to the textbook, which I did not ask for you to use, so obviously I'm going to give you that one. President Thomas Jefferson was surprisingly bipartisan in his appointments, wanting to surround himself with divergent views in line with the principles of intellectual freedom, discourse, and synergy. No. I'd like to think, I'd have to go back and look. I'd like to think that you could infer from the early Republic assignment, the one on Jefferson by Hofstadter, his thesis about how non-confrontational he was, that you could have inferred that one, but I want to make sure that that's clear. So number 28 is false. Thomas Jefferson wrote about intellectual freedom. It's one of the many, many paradoxes about that man, right? He also wrote scathingly in the notes on the state of Virginia and in the original draft of the Declaration against slavery, but yet he kept slaves, right? And didn't want to own up to his relationship with Sally Hemings and their biracial children. So at any rate, that is one of the many contradictions in Jefferson's life. He surrounded himself mainly with fellow Democratic Republicans, despite the fact that he wrote about how all sides of the political spectrum should be represented in government. They should have the freedom to intellectually debate and let the truth come out from that debate. He didn't practice what he preached in so many ways, and that was another instance of such. All right, so 28 is false. And then number 31, apparent contradictions between Jefferson's rhetoric and his actions as president have been interpreted by historian Alan Brinkley as a decision of Jefferson's to work pragmatically with forces beyond his control. Now, remember, that is the thesis of the last one on the early Republic assignment, but I don't remember if I tied Alan Brinkley, the textbook author, to that thesis. So not being sure, I want to err on the side of making it clear. All right, so 31 is true. 31 is true. That's the thesis on the last number in the early Republic handout, and that thesis is espoused by Alan Brinkley, the author of the textbook that I use when I ask students to use a textbook. All right. So, like I said, this being a collegiate class, I don't want to give too many more, but if you guys have a few others that you'd like to ask me about, go ahead and throw your questions my way right now. Anybody else? All right, so please remember that between the lecture videos and the argumentative assignments, you should be able to glean the answers from virtually all the others, I think. Looking at them, reading 1, 2, 3, 4, I'm like, yep, that's right out of the handout, right out of the handout. But nevertheless, my wording, the options, the way that I have the options, articulated. Does anybody have any other questions on any other numbers? Anybody else? Okay, please remember, okay, and this is, I feel strongly about this, is I believe your grade should be representative of the effort that you put into the class throughout the semester. So therefore, that you just have 3 tests and they're not worth any more than any of the assignments. They're 50 points, just like all 14 assignments. So please keep that in mind, that usually my lowest scores are test 2. Okay. But when you have 14 assignments that you do well on and 2 other tests you do well on, you have a great chance of still getting even an A, not doing as well on test 2. So don't psych yourself out. But I have no way of enforcing, and I have no problem with it philosophically as your instructor, with you using notes. So by all means, have your argumentative assignments available to you to peruse as you're taking the test. I deliberately don't put any kind of time limit on it. And like I said, I feel like you could glean the answers from those assignments, almost every one. All right. So after a long pause, can I get any thumbs up? Are you guys ready for this? You guys take note of the ones that I gave you that weren't quite crystal clear. Okay, thank you, Jocelyn. You guys can do this. All right. All right, so last chance. Last chance, you guys. Any other specific numbers? Speak now or forever hold your peace.
Hello, Professor.
Hi.
So is this material that we're going over going to be on test number 2 that's due tomorrow night?
Yes, that's right.
Oh, okay. All right. Thank you.
No problem. I actually have, you said tomorrow night, right? And today's the 6th.
Correct.
Let me, I need to take another look at the syllabus
Okay.
but I have on my calendar, on my written calendar, that it's actually due to 8.
My bad. I meant to say Friday. I keep thinking today's
No
Thursday.
problem.
I'm so sorry.
No, I'm glad you brought it up so we can be clear on it. Yeah, on my calendar, and it should be the same on the syllabus as well as on Canvas, is I have it on my calendar on the 8th. So Friday night it's due. You still have 2 more days. Right. So yeah, make the most of it. And yeah, like I said, feel free to look at the argumentative assignments and read through them. And you guys can do well on this one. All right. All right. So if there aren't any other questions, you guys, I'm going to call it quits. This is pretty typical for my class, as I really try to, go through the entire thing on test one. I want to make sure we're clear on each assignment, but usually test 2 and 3, my Zooms are usually 15 to 20 minutes. So this is kind of typical, but I wish you guys well. And just be very deliberate in how you read each option of each question, and you guys will be fine. All right. Well, have your names down at whatever your raw score is. We have what, 40 questions? So I make everything worth 50, obviously. And so I just have what, 35 questions? Yeah. So I give you a 15-point curve already to make it out of 50. And then in your cases who are here, you'll get a 20-point curve on account of being here today. All right. So if there aren't any other questions, you guys, this is a pretty silent Zoom. I hope that's a good thing. I'm going to go ahead and let you go. All right. You can do this.
I have a quick question.
Yeah.
So I believe the assignment is due tonight, the War of 1812 assignment.
Yes, that is true.
So is there so for the first, I think 12 questions, is there truly a right?
You know what? There somewhat is. There somewhat
Okay.
is. To the extent, let me see if I could share, because I don't have it open. Let me
All
see
right.
if I can share the page with yeah, I don't know if it'll allow me to do that. Shoot. Yeah, I was looking for my actual Canvas page. I would have been happy to share that with you to open up the assignment. But yeah, unfortunately, I'm presently unable to open that assignment. Let me try. Let me see what happens when I do this. There we go. So number one, there's a definitive answer to who did the US fight in the War of 1812? Notice, however, right? And oftentimes when people get this first one wrong, I'll sometimes give them a 49 out of 50 instead of 50. We did not just fight the British. We fought the Native American nations that chose to fight along with the British against us. All right, as you should see from the video. How is Canada connected to the story? That's a very easy, definitive answer when you watch the video. What reason or two is given for poor American military prowess? They give a couple reasons for that, right? A distrust of the federal government, the states wanting to run their own militias, them not wanting to cross the Canadian border, all right? Not having the sufficient funds. How does William Henry Harrison play the villain in the narrative? It makes it pretty clear in the video. So there's data from the video that I'm looking for on that one of him kind of, arguably picking a fight with Tecumseh and the Native Americans in the Ohio Valley. What were the two official reasons for which the U.S. declared war? And you should be able to glean from the video. One is very easy, and people usually get it very quickly and easily. And that is that the British violations of our international rights on the high seas, as you'll see with a famous episode. But two, right, is we contended that the British were fomenting rebellion among our Native American tribes. At the Battle of Tippecanoe, they found British weapons that had been buried with the Native Americans that our army had killed So the British were arming them and meeting with them and conspiring with them, promising them their land back should they fight with Britain against us. How is Tecumseh portrayed in the video? An example or two. You'll find that the video is very sympathetic to Tecumseh, and you'll be able to see that pretty clearly. How did Detroit earn a negative story in the history book? They're going to surrender to the British Army there. What is the story of the Star Spangled Banner song? And so you'll see that with Francis Scott Key and the bombardment of Fort Henry in Baltimore, Maryland. What is the story of Oliver Hazard Perry in the Navy? He was a young hero, and it gives an example or two of such. And how is the Battle of New Orleans depicted? It was actually fought after peace had been struck. They didn't know that. And just see how romanticized that battle seems in the video with Andrew Jackson and his motley army against the mighty British. So to be honest, like I said, I'm not particularly that proud of my War of 1812 assignment, because I really am proud of my argumentative assignments as opposed to this. I think that they're much more thought-provoking and much more relevant to your lives, for history majors, to look at different interpretations to the same topics. But with the War of 1812, I don't know if I was just lazy or what. I haven't come around to making solid arguments about it. So this is just very factual. So almost without exception, there, to answer your question, there is a definitive answer in the video to virtually all these questions. And so it's kind of the lowest level of thinking, just memorization, what happened, how something supposedly happened. But it is what it is. That's I've made an exception with the War of 1812 and had it in this much more, just less controversial, less thought-provoking, traditional format.
Thank you.
You're welcome. All right, anyone else? Back to test 2 or on this assignment. Maybe some of you have watched the video already and maybe it's not quite clear, something. All right. So, all right, you guys, and your answers don't have to be long. Make sure that you're clear in your answer as far as exactly what the video states, to be the answer to the given question. So some, it might necessitate 3 or 4 sentences, but nothing that extensive. Very basic, very traditional format on this one. All right, you guys. So don't forget, this one is due, as you had mentioned, tonight at midnight. And test 2 is due 2 nights from now, Friday the 8th by midnight. So hang in there, you guys. We only have 3 tests, and you're about to do test 2. And just a few more assignments and test 3, and you're done already. So keep it up, okay? I want to encourage you. You're doing very well. As I mentioned in a Canvas announcement to you guys, I'm genuinely impressed with how intelligently you guys have been analyzing and evaluating these argumentative sections. Very well. All right, so with no other questions, I'm going to go ahead and bid you adieu, okay? Good luck with this.
I was just wondering, when are the recordings going to be available to us on Canvas?
That's a great question. Am I behind on, see, with the War of 1812, I put in 2 different lectures, and there's some type of copyright infringement that I'm supposedly guilty of. And it drives me crazy because my lecture mainly derives from 2 books that I've read, not that video. but I don't know if I talk enough about the video and mentioning the video, if that in itself constitutes a violation of copyright laws. But to be honest, I feel like my hands are tied on this particular assignment, that Canvas will not accept hardly anything I put up. So this might have to be an exception where I may not be able to put anything for the War of 1812, but for everything else, there shouldn't be a problem. I'm hoping that maybe I'm incorrect working at two schools, but I thought I was up to the War of 1812 with videos. Is that true or no?
On Canvas, the last Zoom meeting that I'm seeing is from June 20th.
Okay. All right. Well, let me get on that. Okay. And what I'm going to especially do is as I had given you guys the announcement, unfortunately, this has been planned long before I was assigned this summer assignment. I'm going out of town this afternoon through Sunday. But before I leave, I want to make sure that I put this one up. So you guys will be, prepared to take test 2. For the other ones, I apologize. But like I said, I intend our Zooms to be supplemental to the videos that I've already put up. To be honest, the videos that I put up are more helpful, I think, than the Zooms that we share. I go into more detail in them. So yeah, make sure you watch those, and I will try to do better to put our Zooms to try to catch up, with the exception of the War of 1812, because it just will not let me put a darn video on that assignment up. Okay. So my apologies. And yeah, so I will do whatever it takes right now, as soon as we're done, to put this one up, and make sure you that you take a look at it if you need to again. And then as soon as I get back, I'll do everything I can to try to catch up to speed with everything else, with the exception of the War of 1812. All right, so thank you. And I'm going to go ahead and say goodbye, okay? If there aren't any other questions on the War of 1812 assignment or test 2. And I will see you guys Monday at 1 o'clock. All right, thank you.